Welcome to Kiwi Hellenist. My name is Dr. Peter Gainsford, and this is part 3 of a series on the Odyssey of Homer. Today I'm here to talk to you about hospitality and gift exchange. Now, hospitality is something that is central to the moral understanding of what goes on in the Odyssey. It's got this. There are hospitality scenes strewn throughout both of the Homeric epics. There are plenty in the Iliad as well. But within the Odyssey, it is absolutely fundamental to how morality is depicted. As well as the moral aspect, there's also an economic aspect, because when you welcome someone into your home, that's not just a moral thing, it is also tied up with gift exchange, because the idea is that when you send your guest on their way, you're going to give them a gift to take with them. So there's these two main aspects that I'm going to be talking about today. The moral side of hospitality and this idea of gift exchange and how gift exchange works almost as an anthropological concept in Homeric society. Okay, first the moral aspect. So there are basically two main ways that the Odyssey narrator thinks of morality. First is, if someone kills a family member, you get to avenge. You get to avenge the murder. Fine, okay. The other thing is hospitality. It's perhaps even more major than the avenging thing. If it doesn't fall, if there's something that doesn't fall within the hospitality framework, and that doesn't involve avenging anyone's murder, then the thing that you're looking at essentially has almost no moral weight within the Odyssey. So hospitality is a way of describing an individual's moral character. If you're good at operating within the hospitality system, that means you are a good egg, you're a good person. If you're bad at it, if you abuse the system, or if you don't know how it works properly, that means you are a bad person and must be crushed. But like I said earlier, this is something that pops up throughout the Homeric epics. So there's this individual aspect, but there's also a relationship aspect. Hospitality is a way not just of showing that an individual is good or bad, but also a way of building up a relationship between individuals. And this relationship is something that can even be inherited. In Book 1, when the goddess Athena in disguise as Mentes comes and visits Telemachus, Telemachus asks her he asks Mentes if Mentes is a guest friend of Telemachus' father, Odysseus. That is to say, he's saying to her, were you a guest friend of my father? In which case, where I inherit this relationship with you. So it's a relationship that you can inherit. Something similar happens in Book 24. Odysseus, in disguise as a kind of stranger, he comes and visits his father Laertes. Laertes doesn't know who he is, and he tells Laertes this story about how he, the stranger, once welcomed Odysseus into his house. And so the idea is that Laertes, Odysseus' father, is going to inherit the relationship from his son as well. One other scene I'd better mention, because it is so commonly cited in discussions of Homeric hospitality, is in the Iliad. In Iliad Book 6, there's a scene where two heroes on opposing sides, Diomedes and Glaucus, they meet each other in battle, they're about to fight each other, but then they realise that their grandfathers were guest friends. They showed hospitality to each other, and so that means they're guest friends as well. And so instead of fighting and killing each other, they instead exchange gifts and go their separate ways. Like I said last time, there is an emphasis throughout the Odyssey as well on the idea of inheritance. So an inherited relationship is an integral part of that. So that's how relationships can work. And you have positive and negative models of this kind of relationship. You have relationships that work and you have relationships that don't work. The prime example of a dysfunctional relationship would be the relationship between the suitors. Penelope's suitors, these men from the local islands who have come to try and win her hand in marriage, well, because Odysseus has been away for 20 years, these suitors are the main example of a really, really, really bad relationship, because they are not observing the rules of hospitality. They are eating away at Odysseus's property, holding feasts, killing his flocks, basically just taking advantage of everything. They refuse to leave. And there's also an interesting symbolic reversal in their situation as well. Think about how hospitality works normally. If you're going around, traveling around Greece, there are no hotels to stay at, right? You have to rely on other people's hospitality. And that means when you are welcomed into someone else's house, you are in their power. There's a power imbalance. The host holds all the power. The guest is essentially at the host's mercy. You depend on the host for your safety, and not just for a place to stay, but also for your physical safety. With the suitors in Odysseus' house, this relationship is reversed. Because there are so many of them, and because they have overwhelmed the household so completely, the power relationship is the other way around. The suitors have Odysseus' family at their mercy. So this is just one way of showing how perverted and dysfunctional the relationship is. We do have plenty of examples of good relationships too. When Telemachus goes on his journey and visits the heroes Nestor and Menelaus, 3 and 4, these are relationships that work out well. Telemachus shows that he knows how to operate as a guest, and of course Nestor and Menelaus are terrific hosts. Perhaps with a few quibbles here and there. But Telemachus also shows that he's a good host. In Book 1, when the disguised Athena comes to his door, he is the model of a perfect host. He shows a perfect knowledge of exactly how to operate in this situation. He goes to the door instead of waiting for the guest to come in. He goes and greets her at the door. He shows her to a seat. He gives her a meal, all without asking any questions. And only after she's finished eating and she's had a chance to relax does he start trying to engage her in conversation. And then later on, he offers her gifts, a bath, that kind of thing. These are all key signs that you are a good host. So that's Telemachus acting as a good host. Also, later on, in Book 19, he again shows that he is a good host when another disguised person is coming into the house. This time it's Odysseus, disguised as a beggar. He comes in and Telemachus treats him as an honoured guest. And again, he follows the same routine. He welcomes him at the door, he shows him to a seat, he gives him a meal. But there, you've got the suitors on hand, and they show that they are dreadful company because they try to abuse the guest as well. Anyway, so this is hospitality in a nutshell. We do have negative models too. Now, I know it might sound strange to think of this as a case of hospitality if you haven't read the Odyssey before, but the episode of the Cyclops, where Odysseus and his men arrive at the Cyclops Island and they go into the cave. This doesn't turn out well, of course. We'll talk about this in a bit more detail in the next video. The exact mechanics of how this is used to depict a situation of bad hospitality, a bad guest-host relationship, and this shows the monstrosity of the Cyclops. I'll talk about this in a bit more detail next time, because we've already got quite a lot going on today. And there are more similar kinds of things going on in Book 10, when Odysseus and his men meet the Laestrygonians. Again, we've got the trappings of a hospitality situation going on, but they are cannibals, cannibal giants, and they chase Odysseus' men, and it all goes horribly wrong. And again, in Book 10, the encounter with Circe, or Circe, as she is better known, that again is a kind of a warped hospitality scene, and shows that Circe is not one of the civilized people. It turns out that they can get along with her, but only because, again, they reverse the power relationship. Like I said, more about this next time, when I'll be talking more about the mechanics of how hospitality is portrayed. For now, I would like to talk a little bit about gift exchange, because as well as this moral aspect, where you've got the Cyclops and Circe and the Laestrygonians shown as monsters, the suitors are monsters, but then you have Telemachus and Nestor and Menelaus as civilized, people who know the niceties of hospitality. You've got this moral aspect, but you also have the economic aspect. Bear in mind there's no such thing as money in the Homeric world. Coins weren't invented until a good century or two after the Odyssey was composed, so there was no such thing as currency. There was such a thing as trade, but the Odyssey narrator tries to paint it in a slightly primitivizing fashion. He casts exchange as something that is done between aristocratic parties, and it's not really commercial trade. We do see some examples of commercial trade, so this is actually a false archaism. But what the narrator is trying to do is to archaize and depict a primordial world where there's no such thing as trade, except occasionally when he slips up. Instead of trade, what we get is gift exchange. It's hard to engage just how realistic this is supposed to be. Gifts are extremely important as commercial items, but also for illustrating the functioning of this hospitality relationship. So when a relationship goes well, gifts get exchanged. But also there is a commercial aspect as well. Don't be misled into thinking that gifts are aristocratic, commerce is base. This is a pretty common idea in some of the ancient historical writing that you'll find on Homer. It's absolutely false. Gifts are dead important to Odysseus. Let me show you with an example, and today I'll be using Rodney Merrill's translation. Odysseus shows that gifts are important to him. Here is a sample from book 19. Now this is a scene where Odysseus is in disguise as the beggar, and he's talking to Penelope, and she, it seems, does not know that it's actually him. But this disguised stranger, actually Odysseus, he tells a story about having encountered Odysseus, and he gives some news about Odysseus. Penelope, of course, wants to know where Odysseus is, and the stranger tells her, "A long time since would Odysseus have been here, but it seemed to his mind this course would be better, getting together possessions by going about many countries, for of advantage and profit. Odysseus, of men who are mortal, knows a great deal. No other man even would give him a contest." So the idea there is Odysseus is the best man alive at gathering gifts, at gathering wealth. There are so many examples of gifts that he gets. This is especially in connection with his visit to the island of the Phaeacians. Back in Book 8, when he arrives, after he's arrived on the island of the Phaeacians give him really wealthy gifts. First this guy Euryalus, then there's a group of 12 chieftains, then Alcinous, the king of the Phaeacians himself. They all give him marvellous gifts, and they're outlined in some detail. Later on, when Odysseus is telling the story of his wanderings in Book 11, the queen, Arete, she again encourages the Phaeacians to give him even more gifts, so you end up with 2 sets of gifts. And in response, the king says that he would love to keep Odysseus there until the following day, so that he can, quote, complete the gifting. And then at the start of Book 13, the gifts actually materialize, and Alcinous himself stows the gifts on the ship that is going to take Odysseus home. Here's the passage. "Going himself through the ship, Alcinous, sacred in power, stowed it away well under the benches, that none of the comrades, while they wielded their oars in driving ahead, would be hampered." So there's care to make sure that the gifts are stowed in a safe place. And again, later on in Book 13, after Odysseus has arrived on Ithaca, there is quite substantial pondering over exactly how to keep the gifts secure. This is not just a matter of preserving an aristocratic relationship. There is concern for the monetary value of the gifts as well. Now, Odysseus isn't the only member of the family who is good at getting gifts. Telemachus is good at getting gifts too. When he visits Nestor, when he visits Menelaus. In Menelaus' case, he actually negotiates what kind of gift he's going to get. And then Penelope, at a fairly late stage in the Odyssey, book 18, she tricks the suitors into giving her lots of gifts by way of bride price. Supposedly these are gifts that will win her over so that she'll actually agree to marry one of them. But really what she's doing is she's getting wealth from them. Gifts are wealth. There is commercial value. So, yeah, again, the ghosts of Diomedes and Glaucus rear their heads, because the meeting between those two in Iliad Book 6, that is kind of the first place that a lot of people look for an idea of how gift exchange works in Homer. What happens there is that they realize they're guest friends, and instead of fighting, they swap armor. And the poet comments that Glaucus was a bit dumb because he gave away armor of gold for armor of bronze, for 9 oxen's worth, the worth of 100. Now, this is sometimes taken as representative of gift exchange. It really, really isn't. The examples of gift exchange in the Odyssey follow much more recognizable patterns. And there's so much more of them in the Odyssey as well, just the examples I've already given. Nonetheless, that's from the point of view of ancient history. From the point of view of, from an anthropological point of view on gift exchange, the key idea within the Odyssey is generally taken as follows. The idea is that gift giving isn't so much about doing someone a favour as it is about creating indebtment. It's not so much, I'm giving you this gift to show how strong our relationship is, or it's not just that. It's also, I am giving you this gift so that one day, when I come and visit you, you will give me gifts. So it's not just about giving someone a commercially valuable thing, it's also about ensuring that they are indebted to you. That's what gift exchange is. The idea is that giving someone a gift is secretly greedy. One day you'll pay me back. And this is a point of view on gift exchange which is particularly popularized by anthropological work by the likes of Bronislaw Malinowski and Marcel Mauss in the early 20th century. But they realized, and classicists realized this too, that it isn't a zero-sum game. It's not just a matter of I scratch your back, you scratch mine. It does create social bonds, or what is called reciprocity. And there is, in spite of that, there is a strong current of opinion, particularly amongst ancient historians, more than amongst anthropologists, that gift exchange is secretly greedy. I'll quote an article by Ian Morris. He puts it this way: the aim of the gift economy is accumulation for de-accumulation. The gift economy is above all a debt economy, where the actors strive to maximize outgoings. And the idea is that the idea isn't to gather wealth, it's to give away as much wealth as possible so that people will be indebted to you. Now, I want to put it to you that this is too narrow a view of gift exchange. If that's really the whole story, if it's the case that, as Morris puts it, actors strive to maximize outgoings, then okay, giving gifts doesn't require a rationale, but accepting them does. Why would I want to accept gifts? Why would I want to go around gathering gifts if the main idea is really to maximize outgoings? If I'm wanting to maximize outgoings, why do I want to be getting gifts? So that's something that this viewpoint doesn't adequately explain. So really what I want to highlight for you as the last major theme for today's session, for today's video, is that Odysseus, as we were told in the passage I read to you, Odysseus is interested in gathering gifts. Remember how it went in the first passage that I read out. For of advantage and profit, Odysseus of men who are mortal knows a great deal. No other man even would give him a contest. He is the best in the world at gathering gifts. And this is a good thing to do. So the reality is that there is a desire for gifts, a desire for property in Homer. It's not just that gift giving is secretly greedy, there is an interest in gaining wealth as well. How does that work with the idea of gift exchange that Ian Morris outlines? Well, what's really going on is that Odysseus is trying to maximize income, not outgoings. He is trying to maximize income. He goes around gathering gifts wherever he goes. And the reason that this works out for him is that he's engaging in a kind of a Ponzi scheme, essentially. It's not exactly a scam. The idea is that he gathers a huge amount of capital with the understanding that he will be paying back his debt one day. So from a pure Mausian perspective, he's gained nothing. It's zero sum. But 3 counterpoints. First, he is building social bonds. Maybe not so much with the Phaeacians, because they live off in fantasy land. He's never going to see them again. Second, in the short term, before the debts get called in the short term, he is extremely rich. And in the longer term, thirdly, the indebtment that he has accumulated by gathering all of these gifts, he's not going to have to pay it all off in one go. He has a huge amount of capital from the gifts that he's received, and that capital does not need to be paid out in one go. He can use it in the meantime. He can capitalize on it. He can gather more wealth. And the idea seems to be that as long as he's the only one doing this, he's set for life. I mean, this is the thing that really means that he is the best in the world at gathering gifts. He knows how to create wealth by gathering gifts. Even though there's indebtment coming along with that, he is still the best at gathering gifts. His family engage in comparable practices. They don't do a Ponzi scheme. They don't go around gathering gifts like the way that Odysseus does. But they do engage in fudging the boundaries between different kinds of gifts. There's guest gifts on the one hand, but there's also other kinds of exchange. When Penelope tricks the suitors into giving her gifts, what she's really doing is fudging the boundaries between bride price and exchange, commercial exchange. She actually frames the gifts as compensation for lost property, because the suitors have been eating her out of house and home. They've been consuming Odysseus' wealth. She's getting these gifts back by way of compensation, but she frames it as bride price, as a way of essentially tricking them into transferring wealth to her. The words that she uses, this is book 19. Book 19. No, book 18, I beg your pardon. Book 18, she says that the suitors are consuming without payment the goods of another. Without payment. That's the key word there. Proix is the Greek word. She's consuming Odysseus' goods without payment. And so by fudging the lines between compensation and bride price, she manages to maximize the income that she gets from them. It's a similar kind of situation with the gifts that Odysseus, or at least the first set of gifts that Odysseus gets from the Phaeacians. There is a conflation, a blurring of the lines between gift exchange to an honoured guest on the one hand, but also there's a strong undercurrent of an idea that Odysseus is going to be marrying into the family. These gifts are also kind of doubling up as a pseudo-dowry, because the first person he encountered among the Phaeacians was the princess Nausicaa. And there are so many very strong hints that she is ready for marriage, and Odysseus is, a prime target. Alcinous, the king, he himself says that he would love to make Odysseus his son-in-law. He would love to have Odysseus marry into the family. He even promises a dowry if Odysseus should marry Nausicaa. So, fudging the lines between different categories of exchange, but also you've got this idea of the Ponzi scheme that I mentioned. One last thing, and this is, I think, the finest example of someone gaming the system. There are so many loopholes that we've talked about. This is the biggest loophole of them all, and Athena, the goddess Athena herself, is the one who exploits it to the fullest. This scene just fills me with awe. because she games the gift exchange system so well. It is amazing what she does. In book one, right all the way back in book one, when she comes to Odysseus' house in disguise, she's welcomed by Telemachus, and Telemachus promises her a gift. And he offers a gift to take away with her. She actually turns him down. Let me read you the passage. I have to find it first. Here we are. Telemachus is speaking to the disguised Athena, and he says, "But come now, stay a while, though eager to get on your journey. So, after taking a bath and allowing your spirit some pleasure, you can return to your ship with a present, rejoicing in spirit, something of worth and great beauty. For you it will serve as a keepsake out of my hand, such a token as hosts give guests that they care for." Speaking to him then answered the goddess, bright-eyed Athena, "Now no longer detain me, as keen as I am for the journey. As for the gift your courteous heart might bid you to give me, when I return through here, then give me a present to take home. Choosing a very fine one, it will bring an exchange to be valued." Just take a moment to think about what she's done here. Gift exchange is supposed to indebt the receiver to the giver. The giver has the motive of a future indebtment. But look at which way the flow of obligations is working here. When Athena leaves, she doesn't owe Telemachus anything. He owes her. And the sheer beauty of this just blows my mind. Give it to me when I'm on my way back here, when I'm going back the other way. She reverses the flow of obligations. Normally, as I say, the guest would be indebted, but when she leaves, she has wangled things so that the host is indebted to the guest. And that is just amazing. It is awesome. And I think maybe amongst mortals, Odysseus is the best at gathering gifts. But in terms of gaming the system, what Athena does in that scene in book one is just awe-inspiring. She really is even more cunning than Odysseus himself. Okay, so I've talked a bit about the, I've touched on the moral side of hospitality, and I've talked about the economic aspects of exchange, especially gift exchange. In the next video, the fourth in this series, I'm going to be touching on a mechanic, a storytelling mechanic that is used to depict hospitality, either as a functional or a dysfunctional relationship. Because remember, we've got these functional relationships, like between Telemachus and Nestor, Telemachus and Menelaus, and we have dysfunctional relationships, like the one between Odysseus' family and the suitors, Odysseus and the Cyclops. These are opposite models. And there is one particular storytelling mechanic that is used to it's a storytelling device. It's part of the poet's toolkit for depicting whether these relationships are functional or dysfunctional. And that mechanic is type scenes. Now, type scenes, if you know what I'm talking about already, you may think of type scenes as a really sort of boring formulaic tool, as purely just a mechanical device, something invented by people analysing Homer. It's a bit more than that, actually. Type scenes are a device. Like I said, they're part of the poet's toolkit for depicting relationships, depicting moral character, moral attitudes. More about that next time. That's it for today. So as I say, next time, type scenes. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.